Just then he glanced in my direction. I looked at his face and understood everything, but how am I to tell you about it? I would be awfully glad if you or someone else would paint it. Awful. You most of all. I thought at the time that such a picture would do a lot of good. You see, you must show everything that happened before. Everything. He has been in prison, waiting for his execution for a week at least. He had been counting on the usual red tape on the paper with his sentence having to be forwarded somewhere and coming back only after a week. But for some reason the usual procedure was cut short. At 5 o'clock in the morning he was asleep. It was at the end of October. At 5 o'clock it was still cold and dark. The governor of the prison came in quietly with the guard and touched him gently on the shoulder. He sat up, leaning on his elbow, and saw the light. What's the matter? The execution would take place at 10 o'clock. He was still too sleepy to believe it. He began arguing that the paper with his sentence would not be ready for a week. But when he was wide awake, he stopped arguing and fell silent. So I have heard it told. Then he said, all the same, it is very hard that it should be so sudden, and fell silent again, and would not say another word. The next 3 or 4 hours were spent on the usual things. The priest, the breakfast. Is that not a mockery? Just think how cruel it is. And yet, on the other hand, these innocent people do it out of pure kindness and are convinced that it is an act of humanity. Then he was dressed for execution. Do you know what the dressing of a condemned criminal is like? And at last they took him through the town to the scaffold. I cannot help thinking that while he was being driven through the town, he must have felt that he had still an eternity to live. I think he must have thought on the way, I still have a long time. There are still 3 more streets to live. As soon as I pass through this, there will be that one, and then the one with the bakery on the right. Oh, it will be ages before we get to the bakery. All round him there were crowds of people yelling, shouting, 10,000 faces, 10,000 eyes. And all this had to be endured. And worst of all, a thought. There are 10,000 of them, and none of them is being executed. But I am going to be executed. Well, this is just the preliminaries. A ladder leads up to the scaffold, and it was just in front of the ladder that he suddenly burst into tears. A strong and brave man like him. A very wicked man he was. I was told. The priest was with him, drove with him in the cart, and never stopped talking to him. But I do not think he heard a word of what the priest said, and even if he tried to listen, he would not understand more than a couple of words. That was how it must have been. At last he began going up the ladder. His legs were tied and he could only take very small steps. The priest, who must have been an intelligent man, stopped talking, but kept giving him the cross to kiss. At the foot of the ladder he was very pale, but when he reached the top and stood on the scaffold, he suddenly grew out white as a sheet of paper. A sheet of white note paper. His legs must have grown weak and wooden, and he must have felt sick too, as though something were choking him, and that gave him a sort of tickling sensation in the throat. Did you ever experience that feeling in moments of terror? When your reason remains unaffected, but it has no power left? I cannot help feeling that. For instance, in a moment of unavoidable destruction, if the house is collapsing on top of you, you are suddenly overcome by a desire to sit down, close your eyes and wait, come what may. At that very moment when his weakness was beginning, the priest quickly, with a sort of rapid movement, silently put across to his lips such a little cross, a square silver one, and kept putting it to his lips every minute. And every time the cross touched his lips, he opened his eyes and his legs moved on. He kissed the cross greedily. He seemed to be in a hurry to kiss it, as though he were eager not to forget to take something with him in case of need. But I doubt if he was conscious of any religious feeling at the time. And so it went on until he reached the plank. It is odd that people seldom faint at those last moments. On the contrary, her brain, tremendously alive and active, must, I suppose, be working hard, like an engine going at full speed. I imagine all sort of thoughts, all unfinished and absurd too, perhaps quite irrelevant thoughts, must be constantly throbbing through his brain. The man is looking at me. He has a wart on his forehead. One of the buttons on the executioner's coat is rusty, and all the time he knows everything and remembers everything. There is one point which one can never forget, and one can't faint, and everything goes round and round it. Round that point. And to think that this goes on to the last fraction of a second, when his head already lies on the block, and he waits, and he knows, and suddenly he hears the iron come slithering down over his head. He must certainly hear that. If I were lying there, I would listen for it on purpose. I would hear it. There is perhaps only 1/10 of a second left, but one would certainly hear it. Now, imagine, there are still some people who maintain that when the head is cut off, it knows for a second, perhaps, that it has been cut off. What a thought. Now, what if it knows it for 5 seconds? That was the kind of picture